Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you've all been doing well. It certainly has been some time since the last review, but patiently I have been waiting for the great KamiOne Gogeta to arrive. And I gotta say, it's pretty much lived up to the expectations I had set out for it. This thing out the box, ready to play. In comparison to Tauntaun Artois' last release with the trunks, I gotta say this figure is just really impressive. All of the new additions to it with the integration of the softer plastic in the crotch area, the integration of even the, what do we call this? The shin pieces here. Everything about it is just pretty freaking amazing. And that's not to discount the DF. The DF is good, for the price. It's definitely a great option if you want to save some money. It sticks to more of the shfiguarts type of style. But if you want something that is trying to come out of the actual, animation itself, the KamiOne is really good for that specifically. And I really think a lot of people will enjoy this figure. The SS Blue, why did I say it like that? The Super Saiyan Blue version is currently in transit to me. I know a lot of people are starting to receive their shipments. I will put a few AliExpress stores in the description below if you want to go order one. Hopefully they're still in stock by the time you see the video. But without further ado, let's just get started with this review. So first things first, let's just talk about the grand scheme of the design here. I mean, Tauntaun Artois, KamiOne, whatever you want to call them, virtually the same person, has always been great at the sculpt work. It's very detailed, and you could just tell a lot of effort, detail, and love and care was put into this thing. I mean, I know a lot of people will have their gripes about the whole, shoulder peg situation and all that stuff, but the figure, like when you look at this torso piece, like it still has great range while looking this detailed. And you don't get that a lot with figures, in most cases officially and sometimes non-officially. But I really like to see KamiOne, Tauntaun, whatever you want to call them, continue to be able to put more releases out. I know that there's been some prior teases before about, I want to say almost either 6+ months ago or at least a year ago by now, of a Perfect Cell potentially in the works, a Gotenks maybe in the works. But as of now, the one project we do know he is currently working on is a Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. So think about this figure as we talk about it, and just think about how that will apply to a Super Saiyan 4 variant and it looking just phenomenal. So without further ado, let's just continue on. Let's show off the accessories really quick, and then we'll get into the articulation, which is going to be the brew of this video. As we get into the finale closing of the video, I'll give more of my actual gripes I do have with it, and they're probably more nitpicks than gripes, but we'll get to it when we get there. So first off, we've got all of these accessories coming in two different trays. Of course, we've got the TIE Fighter tray here with the actual base accessories such as the crossed arms, and you're getting about, what is this, 8 sets of hands. You're getting an inner shoulder piece to change if you want to just have it be a normal torso without the vest on. Essentially, you get these wrapped arms. Unfortunately, there are no actual swappable hands for these, which if there were, I would use those more often on maybe Trunks or Gogeta himself. I did order another one, so I'd have a spare torso to use, but such is life. If someone ever decided to recast these arms, by the way, these ones in particular, not these ones, but the ones that come on Trunks, and make them the same skin tone, it would be pretty banger for a UI Goku custom, or just a shirtless Goku custom in general. Hopefully somebody would consider doing that, but I'm not holding my breath for it. You also get the, what do you guys like to call it? I call it the Starter's Breaker still. I know people call it Soul Punisher. I'm still used to calling it Starter's Breaker, but you have that effect there. You also have a hand that pegs into it. If you are curious, the Demoniacal Fit hand does also fit on this figure. You can also utilize their version of the Soul Punisher as well. And honestly, I love the interchangeability. Most of the hand pegs should be cross-compatible across most figures these days in the Dragon Ball line, just because more often than not, they share the same hand peg size. But yeah, so that's pretty much all of the base accessories there. I'm not sure if I will showcase these crossed arms on this figure in this video. It highly depends on how long it takes me to get them in there. That is probably one of my little gripes I will talk about later when it comes to actually swapping some of these accessories. So out the box, this head is actually going to be attached to that figure. Looks like Curlin, some say. But yeah, it's pretty cool head. He did this with the Goku on bike release as well, with having, you know, a varied character or some random whatever creation he's got on there as the display for the character in the box. Cool. If you want to use it, it looks detailed enough, you can get away with doing something with that. Now, some people probably don't know this, but you did get an extra sculpt in this release. So you get 3 total Super Saiyan sculpts. You get one sculpt that actually has a peg for the halo. You get another that doesn't have a peg for the halo. And then you get this Windswept Super Saiyan head sculpt, and you get the base as well with 5 faceplates each. You get 2 vests. This one here, I mean, it's windswept. It's really good just in general for keeping it in motion with poses, as opposed to this one over here, which is just kind of regular settled down, which I mean looks good for, as you can see, the fusion, not fusion, what am I talking about? The Soul Punisher effect pose there in the background. So, of course, let's talk a little bit about these croissants here, because I know a lot of people are going to wonder, how do you achieve that pose? You can just swap these out. They haven't broken on me yet, and I'm not gonna say that they are, but they are made of plastic here on these little, you know, pieces. And I know a lot of people's concern is that they'll break very easily, get stuck in here. At that point, if you're that worried about it, hot water, put hot water on it, and it will easily come out. Otherwise, just be careful when you pull it, and when you put it back in as well, just lightly press on it. Now with that, because they are kind of on a little bit of a ball peg, they do move. I've tried kind of seeing if these are bendable and maybe they could stay in place better, but it seems to more hinge on this ball peg here if you want to move it up and down, of course, side to side, whatever have you. And if you do want to do a pose where you need to have the arm up like that, all you're going to have to do is just pop this out, and basically the same thing we do with the demoniacal fit, except this version doesn't have 2 pegs. It only has this one on this side here. But all you're going to do is pretty much just reverse it and flip it up top and put it just like that. No problems, no problems. So if you're also not familiar with Tauntaun Artois' prior project with the future trunks, these arms also do come off again, you know, for the wrist wrapped arms as well, but they do interchange with the Tauntaun Artois trunks arms, as I mentioned. So if you ever want to do that, you can. Just know the skin tone will be off. I also have seen it mentioned, I believe by AR_collector on Instagram, that the shfiguarts Gogeta legs do fit on these pegs here at the waist. So if you wanted to do that for some reason, maybe on the super variant, that probably could look decent if you want like thinner, baggier pants, I guess. But that's also an option. Besides that, yeah, these are all of the phases in case I didn't show them. A wide array of stuff here. I do kind of like the addition to having the pegs attached here at the bangs. And let's quickly bring this up, because I know a lot of people were talking about maybe quality control issues with Tauntaun/KamiOne. Here, if I can get it to focus, I don't really see like an issue with the actual bangs like being messed up there on the side. I know that was some people's concern. I mean, they're never going to be 100% perfect. It's third party, you know, they can't guarantee perfection, but for what I see here, I mean, it's pretty close to being perfectly fine. Nothing to be really concerned about. And let's check this one. The base one is pretty much the same for me as well. So they do push in all the way, at least on mine. I haven't seen any crazy quality control issues, I would say, with this figure that would make playing with it unbearable or anything. So that's really good, especially for the money you are paying for it. You want it to be pretty good quality, right? It's about between depending where you're buying from, it's between like 70, 85 bucks. And of course, with the whole tariff situation going on, that could play a factor. So let's continue on. We've got all of the accessories showcased. Do I want to talk about this now? Yeah, let's talk about it now. I'm going to take this and put him on the side, and we're quickly going to talk about this vest, but I'm going to grab the demoniacal fit, and I'm going to grab one of the old kits from Tauntaun Artois really quick. All right, so we're back, and this is really random, I know, but a lot of people question, why did Tauntaun go with the, let's call them croissants on the vest instead of just doing a whole vest that's soft plastic, similar to his trunks that he did not too long ago, where it was all one whole piece, and you know, it's soft plastic, it's flexible. And to that I say, let's look at this boot tanks kit, right? This thing, when you stretch it out, it starts to tear like that. And for some people, they may not care about that. It may not be a problem. And when it settles back down, it's fine. However, I don't know what type of material per se, you know, Tonson at the time chose to use. This one here is a lot harder plastic than that Trunks, for example. It's more in place, you know, it holds the scope of what it's supposed to be. But even for the regular one here, it's a little bit more tougher than the Tonson Artois Trunks. This right here was designed for Super Boo, so you can have the Boo tanks. And even then, with how big it is, you'd think maybe it could be a little bit more flexible in areas, and it is bendy. You know, it's not too tough. You can see right there. But these parts right here, they just start to tear, and the paint starts to chip. And I think a lot of people may not want that personally. Now the Demon Fit, you know, you could argue, okay, well, they have a better one. You know, it's soft plastic, it's not tearing and stuff like that. And to that I say, good on Demon Fit for it, right? The only complaint I would have there is I don't think that this needed to be glued down. They could have definitely left it a part of this system here and kept that same kind of design. But then you ask yourself, okay, well, what do you do about the croissants part of it, right? Like the shoulder parts. How does that work? And to that, I don't have an answer. All I could say is I still feel like this is the better option if you don't want to deal with paint chipping on these type of items here. Demon Fit, again, I don't know what material that they use here to not have that happen, where as you can see, the paint's not really like chipping like that, at least not in big increments. It's very, very thin strips there. But yeah, that's just something to bring up. I think Tonson / KamiOne, you know, did good with this regarding, you know, the vest piece still. Demon Fit might have a little bit better with the consistency in the arm, since half of it is kind of black as well, just to blend in with the actual inner shoulder part and the, you know, overall wrist. Oh my goodness gracious. All right, sorry about that, camera issues. But what I was saying, basically, you know, I think Demon Fit had a little bit better in terms of being able to, you know, get that consistency across with the vest to the arms, versus maybe Tonson here, where it is a little bit thinner, and as these pieces start to pull away, it looks a little weird, right? And when you start to pull it out, I mean, yeah, it varies. It's a personal gripe depending on the person, and for me, I just feel like he did make a good choice here for his figure, at least. But again, that's where you have two different figures who serve two different purposes for various different people. And that's why it's good to have options in this hobby at this point. You know, we've got KamiOne, Demon Fit. What are they going by? Mythos Anime, with their projection of having a Gogeta out sometime, I don't know, next year maybe. You've got the shfiguarts event exclusive coming this what is it, November, October, for New York Comic-Con, and who knows what the future holds, right? I mean, we've still got Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta also from KamiOne. It's a lot, right? So it's good to have options, pick what you like, just to keep it in mind. But with that, I think it's time that we skip on over into the articulation phase of this figure, because that for me right now is what I really want to highlight, and then get into some of the other stuff at the end. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, so first thing that we're gonna do, of course, we got to check that head articulation, and unfortunately, there's like virtually not really any articulation going up top. You can't really look up top too well, and of course, that's just gonna happen with this piece here. And if there was an option to kind of move it back or move it down so you have some extra range, that would be great. But because of how tight it is on the body and just the nature of the kind of plastic it is, I don't really have that option. So I'm just I have to, you know, utilize this actual ab crunch, which is not necessarily a problem. Looking down, not too bad. As you can see, the faceplates start to peel off a little bit at that point. Side to side, pretty good. The neck movement, we can just take this off. Neck movement can go about, not too far. Yeah, that's about as far down as it's gonna go. Left and right is not really there. And the peg, as you can see, double ball peg. If you're asking what's gonna fit on here, you could put the HM, heads on here if you want to. Don't really think they look that good. The demoniacal fit head, we can test that right now on camera and see if it actually fits because I haven't tried it yet. I wouldn't really put it on here, but let's see. Pegs are tad different there. Maybe with some force or some hot water I could get it in there, but I'm not gonna do that at the moment. But yeah, head swaps, there's not really a lot of Gogeta heads out there to begin with, and that's kind of a symptom of just not really having any Gogeta figures be prominently featured across these last few years, whereas we've had Vegetos, and more Vegetos. So hopefully we start to see more, and I'm sure we will. There's been one studio I think we've seen 3 different sets from in the last few months, and I haven't really heard any updates on that right now, but personally I really feel like the heads that come with this figure are perfectly fine. So moving on, that's gonna happen a lot, at least on my copy. I have fiddled with it at least for the last, I don't know, day or two now that I've had it, and I will say there's been some complications, and that's the good part about trying to play with the figure for a couple days before I review it, is I want to see what the stress test is like with it. So I'm going to try to put this back on here and then we'll continue. And for those curious, while I do have the figure here kind of exposed like this part here to interchange this with the skin tone variant of it is such a pain in the ass, and the reason being is just, you see these little grooves. Let me see if I can get the light better. These little grooves here on the side, right? You have to fit the actual peg in there, and that's how it would stay steady. Now, once you remove all that and you fiddle with it, it becomes a much bigger problem trying to get it back in there because this peg moves. Now, I could just take the peg out and try to insert it back in, but sometimes that provides more of a problem than it needs to be, right? Just because of how small it is and the hole being there. Don't know how tight that is either, so I don't want to mess with it. But yeah, just something to be out on the lookout for if you're planning to interchange these. Hence the reason why I decided I want another body just specifically for that, so I don't even have to go through the hassle. Because what you'll notice here, and this is something I did want to highlight near the end of the video, but this part right here is actually already starting to separate anytime it's kind of stressed. So that is cause for concern. But let me try to finish this and then we'll get back to the articulation. All right, so just to make it easier on myself, I took the little shoulder pad pieces off. Being that you can reattach them at any point whenever you're trying to pose, it shouldn't provide much of a problem when you take them off and get whatever your position you want the figure in. So that's why I'll leave them off for now, but as you can see, that's what the holes look like. And like I said, messing with these just becomes too much of a freaking pain, and I just don't want to deal with it. So like I said, I will not be messing with them anymore after this point. But yeah, arms solid. They can cross over pretty well. I'm just trying to make sure this thing is not going to pop out again, because once you mess with those pegs, man, they do become a problem. So I'm going to push in as much as I can here and straighten the arms out. And with the vest on, this is about how much he can accomplish in terms of the range, which still is pretty good. Not too bad. I would like to see it cross over more, but I'm sure without the vest, he has no problem. I believe I've seen a couple of reviews already where they showcase the butterfly joint being perfectly fine. So again, just comes down to the vest kind of being in the way a little bit, especially up here. You've got your bend there at the elbow. Good as always. Of course, these do move if you want to, move it around a little bit like so or whatever, depending on the angle of your photos, videos, whatever you're doing. Of course, we've got our wrist swivel here, perfectly fine. We'll say though, these wrist pegs do pop out from time to time. So far, it's just been the left one. The right one has been perfectly fine up to this point so far at the time of this video. But if specific hands, they have no problem popping in and out versus maybe like, I don't know, the Key Blast hand, for example, it fully pulls the peg out, which is not a problem if it goes back in just fine. But over time, I do worry about that loosening up even more and becoming harder and harder to keep in position. So something to keep in mind, but so far so good other than that stuff. Of course, you've got your bicep swivel here. It's a bit tight, but not as tight as prior figures. So if that's something that bothers you with the squeakiness, there are solutions to fix that are pretty cheap, cost effective, or if you want to use hot water. Again, like I said in my last couple reviews, I literally have stuck to just using hot water for most instances and haven't had an issue. So here we go down to the ab crunch without the actual crotch piece here. That's about as far down as he's gonna go. And going back, of course, figures always can bend their backs a lot better than they can going forward. Now utilizing the crotch piece there, it's about as far down as he's going to be able to go. It's possible there's a mod or something to fix, not even fix, but to enhance the articulation in the chest there, but honestly I feel like it's not really needed at this time. You've got your sash here, pretty good range and articulation, not too bad. This sash does freely move pretty well, so if you ever want to just move it around and do whatever poses, angles, no problem. It looks pretty good all around the waist. Now I'm gonna pop this off just because I really want to come on, there we go. I wanted to highlight this soft plastic here. So much like we've seen with a lot of the recent SH figure releases, Tonson/KamiOne has integrated that into his figure here. So we've got the soft plastic crotch piece, which is actually really good for poses and just in general with range. Like it works. It helps so much more. And I think that's one thing I'm really excited for with the SH figuarts in general. Just more possibility, right? More posability, more possibility. It just works really well. We've seen that with the Super Saiyan Gohan. We've seen that with the Games Begin Goku that's coming up soon. And I'm sure, yeah, we've seen it with the Daima Vegeta, etc. Right? Like it's something I am glad to see them taking a direction in. So again, we've got Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta to look to, and I'm excited for that figure with everything I'm seeing here so far. So let me reattach this back on here so we can get a proper showcase of all that articulation with the actual torso on. And in case you're wondering, no, this torso does not connect to anything that is pre-existing, at least so far in my collection. So it doesn't work with the demoniacal fit. It doesn't really seem to work with the SH figuarts, and where is it? It does not fit on this demoniacal fit body either. Peg is too big on most of the other stuff, while the peg hole is too small here. Don't know if KamiOne decided to do that intentionally or what, but yeah. The really only thing he's going to be cross compatible with is his own figure with the other Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, I assume. But there's always room for somebody to either do something and showcase a type of mod for it or whatever if you really want to do it, but as the figure stands, not really something I'm currently interested in doing with swapping and doing all that, you know, doohickey stuff. God, I sound old saying that. All right, so thigh swivel, pretty good, not too tight. Pops off at the leg pretty simply, pretty easily, but not enough that it's just gonna, you know, be like that permanently, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people feel differently about this area here with the design. It doesn't really bother me personally. I think it's better than at least what I've seen with the legendary Super Saiyan Goku, where it's the body proportions and how it looks as it goes from the legs to the hips to the chest. I think that's what really made it look really weird. But here, you know, it's a little bit better proportion. It doesn't look too off-putting, in my opinion. Legs get really good range here. Of course, he can do the splits, no problem. Why would you doubt it? We've also got this new, remind me next time to close my window, but as I was saying, we've also got this new shin thing here, which we've seen with the Daima Goku. I actually have him over here. So we've seen it here. Honestly, the purpose of it, I mean, I haven't utilized it myself all that much. I would like to see a boot swivel, at least, you know, on the next Goku, but the shin thing here is cool to see that he's integrating that early on into these figures. As for the ankles, they get some really good range there. And then you got your toe pivot there. And of course, ankles are not too hard, not too tight. They do full 360. Somebody was asking about that. But yeah, overall, you know, this figure as it stands is probably one of the best Gogeta figures we have to date. And that's not me just glazing taunting here, or KamiOne, whatever you want to call them. Genuinely, like, this might be the best Gogeta figure we have for the foreseeable future. Why did I say future? Future. Until Tamashii decides to drop theirs, which I have no doubt that they have one somewhere in the books. It's just an interesting choice that they decided to do an event exclusive this year for them. And yes, the head sculpt looks freaking beautiful. Like, that right there is Gogeta. But I do want to see them with their creativity and what they can accomplish with their engineering and technology today, as opposed to back then when they made this Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta from Dragon Ball Super Broly. And if you're wondering, this is the HM head sculpt I was referencing earlier, so that's why this doesn't look like the SHF. Anyways, I think it's time where I move to the final part of this video where I discuss my personal gripes with the figure, recommendations, etc. So with that being said, I'm going to clean up a little bit. I'll probably put some background figures here for you guys to see him with in comparison, and then we'll just talk. So catch you in the flip side. Be right back. All right, so closing thoughts with this particular Gogeta figure. I've got to say, it is worth the money. Okay, 80 bucks at minimum, I believe, is what you're gonna pay, but you can find it maybe a little cheaper depending on if you're using AliExpress discounts, right? All the promotion codes, coins, and whatnot, you might be able to get a little cheaper. But at max, it should be about 85. That's what I've seen so far consistently, between 80 and 85. But this particular figure just satisfies and quenches a lot of my thirst for Gogeta, period. We haven't had a figure like this for so long for this character, and it just reinvigorates like my hype for the character even more. And again, I hope Tamashii can drop a Gogeta that's updated. I'm happy that they're tapping back into him with the EE, but I want to see something more. But when it comes to my gripes about this figure, right? Yes, there is some paint rub that does come across with the vest, unfortunately. I've seen it a lot, in particular with this one, the windswept kind of vest. I haven't seen it so much with the regular one, but it does appear, you know, inward with the chest area, at the shoulders, and it's easy to wipe off, so it's not really staining too bad, but on the little crevices, it does kind of hold there, unfortunately. And again, a little bit of it is a nitpick. I'm not sure how many people really care about that stuff, but if you do care about keeping your figures relatively clean, I'm sure it's something you may you know, tend to be aware of. And if you want to compare between these two figures, just little things, like I do prefer like the halo we got from Demon Aquafit. I just like that coloring a little bit more than this kind of neon yellow, whereas, you know, obviously it's supposed to be a bright white kind of light. I do kind of like that more translucent piece to it. In terms of the sculpt with the Super Saiyan and base head sculpts, while they don't necessarily have the full Dragon Ball Z Fusion Reborn feel to it, you still know that this is Gogeta, and that's why I'm pretty satisfied with it. Probably could have done with maybe some more shading across it, but then again, when I think about the shading that was originally going on with like the Super Saiyan Blue sculpts, a lot of people didn't like those frosted white tips and how they were looking, and I'm confident, you know, KamiOne can do really good with that, but with the turnaround time, I think, you know, delaying any further would have probably not been the best idea. So I don't really have like a lot of complaints about this figure. That's a really good thing. Those are mainly just little tiny tidbits that I really have a problem with. And again, like I mentioned, somewhere, you know, within the early parts of this review, this inward shoulder piece is just annoying, and I don't want to ever deal with that again until I actually get my other figure and permanently change this out. But like I said, swapping these little pieces out here can just, oh my goodness, trying to get this little thing to show. I don't know if I can get it to focus on the camera. Focus. Okay, this little piece here, trying to get the grooves perfectly to fit in there with each, you know, peg. It's annoying, and as you can see, I already have seen the chest start to not tear apart, but break apart and separate at the shoulder where the seam is, and any more messing with that, it's probably going to end up breaking. don't want that. It can show maybe that the body might be a little bit more fragile in that area, which you want to be more careful of. But still, just something to be aware of and to take note of. Anyways, as you can see within these three different Gogetas, let me make sure it's focused back on him. He's relatively the same height. He's not super tall, which I know some complaints were there with the Tauntaun Artois Trunks being like super tall and kind of out of scale with a lot of the shfiguarts, which, you know, at the end of the day, again, I keep saying this in every review, I don't really care about the scale if it's close enough, right? If it's something just so off-putting that it looks noticeable, like legendary Super Saiyan Goku compared to the old 2.0 Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku being such a difference in height, yeah, I'm obviously going to be weirded out by that. But something that's just in the same norm, like I really wouldn't notice it when the figure is posed either way. It's not like a nitpick for me. In addition, I guess I'll tease this in case you haven't heard, I did receive the OC Toys Vegito as well. We'll put that on the docket for a review at some point. Early thoughts, he's okay. You know, haven't messed with him just yet. But anyways, yeah, that's Gogeta for you. If you want him, go buy him. I would recommend getting the Super Saiyan Blue variant if you want that, because it sounds like that one was made in less quantity as opposed to the Z variant. So depending which one you want, you might want to act fast. Omni-May does have the Z variant. I know a lot of people feel differently about Omni-May, but everybody's experience is different is all I can say. I haven't had a problem with them myself yet, so I can't really say anything bad in terms of my own personal experience. AliExpress, everybody's gonna have a different experience with it. So far, the Kang, I believe this the Kang Dragon Ball Toy Wholesale Store, I think is the name. I'll put it in the description either way. Has so far had the fastest shipping out of all the Ali stores I usually use. They ship within about 28 to 48 or 24 to 48 hours, and it got here. This Gogeta got here in about 7 days, and that's probably the fastest I've received something off of AliExpress in terms of Dragon Ball third-party figures. So, you know, I have to say I recommend them. Also, there was no extra like tariff fees or anything like that on its way here, so that's always good. But yeah, that's been Gogeta. This is the review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, I'm just so freaking happy that this is finally here. So excited for the Super Saiyan Blue variant as well. That review is probably going to be 10 times smaller and shorter just because we already covered everything here about it. And yeah, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is on the way. I would love to see it hopefully before the end of the year, but it could be a 2026 thing along with some other figures. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next review. Have a good one. Peace.